Hello, I'm ToyCat and welcome back to the second channel geography video. This is a series where we talk about geography and the world and stuff. And something very interesting happens when you talk about the United States of America, because unlike every other country, when you picture the United States, you probably picture also the subdivisions of it. I mean, it's literally called the United States, so you know its subdivisions, its states quite well, and in fact, they even show visibly here from Google Maps. The closest thing we have to like a worldwide map, equivalent actually shows the states of the US, even as far out as here, but if we go to another country like the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, literally a country of countries, you can see how the subdivisions aren't visible till really far in. Here is England, Wales and Scotland, and the borders between them aren't visible till even further into that map. It's very hard to see the borders between them. It's hard to really know the difference between the subdivisions and the country itself, and even Germany, which is literally the Federal Republic of Germany. It's 15 states together, but seeing each of the individual states, if you aren't already familiar with them, is very hard to do. If you don't know Germany, look at this map and try and tell me where the 15 states are. It's very hard, something that can't be said for the United States of America, and therefore the US has, or perhaps because of that fact, the US has some of the most famous subdivisions, its states in the world. But the interesting thing about the US that we all see, comes up more and more, especially in global politics today, right? But the United States is made up of, 50 states that all have very different opinions about how to run things. And obviously there is a certain amount of, federalization, a certain amount of autonomy to the states, but given that that slowly decreases over time, given that these states slowly lose that in favor of the federal powers, and given that they all have very different goals on how to run things, I've always thought it's weird that all of these states have one person that is at least in theory in charge of all of them. The power kind of changes over time, but it's a very weird, bizarre thing, and therefore I've concluded the US needs to be split up. There's a lot of ways you can split up or change the US if you really want to. Here is Grid America, which I think is beautiful, but there's a lot of ways we can split this map up, and I've decided we're going to do precisely that. I'm going to fix the America problem. Rather than having one country which is just so, unbalanced and powerful compared to the rest of the world, I'm going to be making America a zone that people want to live in. Because here's the deal, right? People in different parts of the country have very different views to each other about how so many different things should be done, so why don't we just let them have those different views? Why don't we just go ahead and divide, for instance? Because a lot of people think about the US in north-south terms, but it's like, how many hundreds of years old are you outdated? Do you know how long ago the Civil War is? In my opinion, the much bigger conflict is that between East and West. Obviously, the West is significantly, because obviously the coast versus the middle is what people think about, but the West is significantly more liberal in different ways than the East can be, and especially more than the middle. So I think that, the logical thing to do is to take most of the West Coast right here. This is a thick line, actually. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking most of the West Coast, Washington and Seattle, big tech hub. We're going to be taking the coastal parts of Oregon, and we're going to be taking North California, and we're going to be making like a West Coast stronghold country, the WCS. That is awful. We're going to be making this thing right here because I think those places have such a unity combined. They do have some synergy. I mean, California provides some food, and the Silicon Valley, Seattle provides that, and then in between them they've got Portland, which provides many things to the world that I could totally list right now if I wanted to, but I totally don't. And then obviously that also achieves the goal of splitting California. I think California being the biggest state, sure, maybe there's some benefits to that, but I think too much cultural capital comes from one place right now. Both movies and the internet are coming from the same state. They come under the same set of regulations, which is a problem because, again, California is a state of 40 million people. The number of people who use the internet and watch movies out there is in the billions. Bit of a problem, so let's at the very least split it up into two. Let's have a North California and a South California. North California goes up and joins the WCS, and that's a nice tech place. And then the south of California is, this movie place. We'll just call it, Hollywood. Simple as that. That's how the world knows it. It's Hollywood, LA, and just other things that are vaguely Hollywood and LA. So there we go. We've nailed that down. Another thing, by the way, my paint is laggy. I don't know how it is possible. This cursor is super, super slow and inconsistent. Don't ask me how that's true, but if it bugs you, it bugs me too. I just want that to be on record. So, next up here, I feel you know what? Here's another thing when you look at the state map that is very clear. North Dakota and South Dakota, there's only a few states that split into two. There's Virginia, West Virginia, there's North Carolina, South Carolina. As in, I'm saying they have the same name with just a geographical prefix. I know Maine split as well, but my point is that there's only a few states which are North and Southified. North and South Dakota are least deserving, so I think the most logical thing to do next is to take North and South Dakota, combine them together, except realistically, you know, Nebraska is its own state. I'm not sure anyone's buying that. Kansas, oh yeah, these are great states of their whole output. No, the thing that everyone knows these states for in America is the states you have to cross to get to the rest of them. So this can be like the toll road, the middle, the barrier. Yeah, we'll call it the barrier state, the BS. These are the BS states. Like, I get that they exist, I get that they're valuable, but do they need to be all their own individual units, or do they all have the same policy of like, we exist, and sometimes there are natural resources, and otherwise we're the in-between states. That is the BS, the Brotherhood of States, or whatever you want to call it. They can do, you know, very different policies to things over there. Look how great we've just done right there. Combined 4 states here, 3 states here, split this state in half, and now the US is much better already, I think. But another thing that is just essential is there are too many states on the east. Like, let's be real, Vermont and New Hampshire, like, they look like this on a map, I want to say. Like, there's a diagonal. That's dumb, you know what? No. Vermont, New Hampshire, we're going to combine them together, and because they have this, like, kind of culture of, like, we're basically Canada, let's just go ahead and make basically Canada, BC, if you will, a thing over here. Because the northern half of New York is very disconnected from the city part of New York, and it's also super cold in places like Buffalo. They have insane winters from what I can tell, so they get to be their own country. Basically Canada, the winterland, you know. I think that makes a lot of sense. Also, speaking of New York, Connecticut as a state, haha, more like, you know, East New York. No, New York, Connecticut, also Rhode Island, you know, just for fun, and a little bit of Massachusetts. We're going to combine this with the northern half of New Jersey, because let's just be real with ourselves. Let's not kid ourselves in the slightest. Or the New York City area transcends multiple states. Let's just give it its whole own governance, so all the people who live outside of there can be under the jurisdiction, and you know, then we don't have to have this whole weird thing where like multiple states are part of New York's like zone of influence, which, you know, it's not a bad thing having, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a bad thing in the current system, but if you were going to design a system, you wouldn't have one city which controls 3 or 4 states. Now you combine them together to make NYC. This is the second most famous, yeah, I'd probably say like after like, you know, the Hollywood state, this would probably be the second most famous internationally. Everyone's like, yeah, the yellow taxis and that green statue thing that actually was like, I want to say orange at one point because it's made of copper, right? Anyway, yeah, so that's New York City, that's BC. And then also, you know, South New Jersey and all of the like tiny states on the east here, like there's Delaware, there's a bit of Maryland. Yeah, actually, we'll just make Pennsylvania as well because it's just very big. We'll just take all of like East Pennsylvania and all of the states right here up until like DC and just make this like the in-between state. You know, that's a thing that exists. Doesn't even get its own name. Also, I'm combining Boston and Maine, Massachusetts and Maine again. We're going to make the East, you know, we'll just call it Maine, you know. M for Massachusetts, M for Maine. This is Massachusetts. Or I guess you could just go back down to Massachusetts. No, this is Massachusetts. It's a nice state. And this right here is the, you know, this is the East Coast, because that's the West Coast state. This is the ECS, because this is like all the East Coast states that are like, they exist and they technically have equal representation. That's all of those right there. Boom. Now look at this right here. Do you see how all of these are very easy to look at? When you look at a real map of the US, you have to label them with these darn arrows, like New Hampshire's over there, by the way, Vermont's over there, Massachusetts and Rhode Island connect. No. This is the way I'm doing things. Every single state should have its name right below there. If the state's not big enough to have its name written, it doesn't get to be a state. Next up, by the way, I think we're just going to take like all of the South and be like, you know what, the South has like a surprising amount of unity. Let's let it be one country. Let's just let this be the South. You know, like, obviously there are actually differences between like the South Carolinas and the furthest north. Actually, we're including North Carolina in here too, but like, you know what, the South plus the N, SN if you will, there you go. South and North, the North of the South, NS. There you go. The North-South, because they're very contradictory in nature in many ways, and you know, that's the thing we're going to do right here. Also, they get some of Florida, because, let's be real, the panhandle bit of Florida, that's just a part of the North-South too. And then Florida gets to be its own little independent republic. Again, of all the states that have a population large enough to actually sustain themselves as a country, I think Florida's actually up there. Once it gets rid of its North-Southiness, it become a country that's just like, you know, it's one of the tourism spots. maybe third after NYC and the Hollywood state, right? Next up here, we're going to take, I guess, Texas is logical, because you've got to cross over the border states to get between these two things. But also, you know what? Texas is a thing over here somewhere. I don't know how to draw Texas in the slightest. Like, I can, if you showed me Texas, I'd be able to picture it. But otherwise, I'd just have to be like, this is vaguely Texas. Except, you know what? East and West Texans don't really get along too much. East Texas is very city heavy, and West Texas is very rural heavy. So let's kind of just take the East, and let's be like, this is East Texas plus Louisiana. It's a party city. Everyone gets along there. So this is Texas plus Louisiana. Louisianix. Louisix. LX. There you go. LX is a cool, like, 2 letters. I picture, like, Swiss Airlines because I've got a airline problem, but, like, LX is, ooh, that's, what is it? Who knows? Oh, wait. LX, XL, right? Because that's what you'll be if you eat the food here for too long. I'm not going to offend anyone in this video. I don't see how anyone could be offended with me relabeling these states right here. Next up, I think it's clear. Michigan's gonna lose its peninsula, but like, does Michigan really need to exist? The only interaction I have with Michigan in the world is people being mad that I say it Michigan, and it's like, oh no, how dare I pronounce M-I-C-H as Mitch? Yeah, I'm an idiot for not saying that as Mish. You're right, Michiganers, but you know what you get in exchange for your semantics correction? No, this becomes all of like Chicago Concern. Yeah, CC. This becomes Chicago Concern. Should we start coloring this in? We can do that later. You know, that's a fine thing. Chicago Concern and its nice little eastern neighbor. I think it's like the closest thing we have to a donut state so far. So, you know, they have a lot of donut exports. Also, a lot of crime, starts with C. Also, they have this Lake something. I think it starts with C. Lake Christie, maybe? You know, Lake Christie sounds correct. That's a lake somewhere in the world. It might not be that lake, but it is now. So yeah, this is the C state. Chicago Concern. And I think I've done a beautiful thing right there. And then all of these in-between states, like you could name them individually, like Kentucky is probably in there, a little bit of Tennessee maybe, Virginia, or like West Virginia. I think most Virginia's in the East Coast states. Let's just take all of this bubble, minus like a little thing here. Actually, you know, let's like take one more state out from over here. Let's make some nice square lines on here, just so we can have the most awkwardly sized shape in the world. So yeah, we're gonna have a nice awkward shape here. So this right here would be like Oklahoma, or the OK state. You know, Oklahoma gets to exist. I only know bad things about Oklahoma, but that means that there are other things to learn about it that just aren't famous. You know, they need a state to let people know that they're okay. Look, I know you've heard about the Tulsa riots. I know you've heard about the Oklahoma city bombing. But besides those things, Oklahoma's an okay state, and you know that's why they get to be okay still. And then this whole thing just gets to be like the forgotten states, like you know Ohio, again a bit of Kentucky, I want to say, something over here that I really couldn't even tell you. You know, these are the forgotten states. Like what is this? This is mostly this is Minnesota. You know what? Let's be honest, Minnesota is something people weren't thinking about too often until a couple of weeks ago. Who knows why they started thinking about it then? They're in the forgotten states. When it comes up, you'll be like, oh yeah, it's in the forgotten states. That's why I don't think about it too often. Let's try this again, actually. You know, now's not the time to get picky on how I write these, but let's try our best. And then finally, we come over here to the west. I think it makes sense, like New Mexico, and like parts of Arizona and Nevada all have this same kind of cool logic of just like, you know, whatever, man. We couldn't really, you know, like they're pretty small states. They can't really make big enforceable laws. So what we're going to do is we're going to combine these into one. Nevada's a really hard state to do, right? I think it's like, it looks something like this normally, with like a little dagger coming down there. So we'll take Nevada like that, but then we'll, okay, let's try this again. We'll take Nevada, and then we'll like slide it over to there. We'll squeeze out Arizona as its own thing. Actually, yeah, we'll make Arizona like an exclave of the BS. No, actually, no, Arizona gets its own thing with something else. So we'll take this, and we'll call this the Freedom. Oh, we've already got FS, the Forgotten States. So this can be Las Vegas and Friends. LV plus Friends. These are the states that you don't want to live in, but you definitely want to visit from one of the other ones. Again, I actually do want to live in Vegas. That's a thing coming up in my near future. But LV plus Friends. Oh, isn't this state collection great? You know, the west of Texas gets their kind of freedom thing. New Mexico, same thing. Nevada, you know, like all these places with pretty lax ignore, do whatever you want kind of things. We'll combine them together, make one wonderful state. And then also, you know what? I think Phoenix and Colorado, they can be their own little, like, separated, you know, east and west. Color Phoenix, Colorzina, Azarado. Wait, I'm gonna try. Arizado. Yeah, Arizado, I think, is the closest we can get. So Arizado, Azarado. You know, I'll just go with AO. A-O, and also AO. We'll color these now so we don't forget they're the same. They can become a nice purple state, just like, oh, okay, this is... I should have colored them in before writing things up. But they can be one state. And then that finally leaves this thing right here. We could split up into multiple bits like the US has done. But Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, they were all made out of the same territory anyway. Can you tell me the deep political differences between these three states? Again, the only thing even Americans seem to know Idaho for is like, oh yeah, potatoes, lol. And it's like, if the most famous thing a state can export is potatoes, that tells me they don't get to be their own state. So Wyoming, Daho, Montoming, Daho. So MTD is their new thing, like the Mountain Time Dome, as apparently it is. We're going to color in the state first. This is going to be the one state that looks decent. And then we're going to write, using our lovely brush, Oh, we're using green. T. T. Can you tell my handwriting isn't very good? I bet you can't. So now we're going to color in the states. Also, by the way, this is only the West Coast states get to be pink, because you know they want to be. Hollywood gets to be Hollywood colors. You know, actually, I think El Vegas should be red, because that's like gambling color. Texlahoma, or Louisiaxis, can be a nice... I think it gets to be a nice orange, you know, like, when I picture Louisiana, I picture Popeyes, because I don't know too much about the state besides New Orleans. So, you know, they get to be orange like Popeyes. The Chicago Constant gets to be a nice gray color. Yep, that makes sense to me. We'll have the border states. What color are borders? Borders are like grayish also, but a lighter gray. You know, we can't have gray on this map. That's not okay. So we'll color them black. Yep, that looks great. You know, and then we'll write on top of the black. They are the border states, because borders are traditionally black, right? That's not me being offensive. That is just me saying it how it is. And then we'll have the freedom states. What color is freedom? Red, white, and blue. What happens when you approximate red, white, and blue? You get a really light purple, I guess. So boom. Oklahoma, they get to be like an even deeper red. Because, you know, let's be honest, they'll be a nice conservative state until they realize they need to woo over some business from the other states, and then all of a sudden they'll be like, oh, it turns out we're whatever goes. States just like Las Vegas and Friends. Yeah, Hollywood gets to be a nice yellow. BC, basically Canada. Canada's flag is red and white, so I guess they get to be a nice pink color. Massachusetts, I'm loving as a blue because they rely on fishing and like the universities in Boston, I guess. New York City, gonna go ahead and give this a maroon color. Okay, that's ugly. I mean, all of these are ugly, but let's be more dignified at this. Let's go with a light blue for New York City. For the East Coast states, we'll go with, again, solid blue. You know, these states are all blue because they have some solidarity with each other. Isn't that nice? The New South, we'll go with a nice, strong red as well. You know, I don't imply they're the same country, though. So maybe we should go with like a kind of a pinky thing here too. We've already got 2 pink states. Damn, you know, it's hard. With only the colors we have in paint, we just cannot do this. Let's go ahead and let's make like a deep red. That's just black. Okay, there we go. Deep red. We did it. Boom. That's the New South. Florida gets to be this wonderful little place that has green, but like a dark green. Yeah, let's go. Or like a light green. There we go, because they've got nature or something. And this is my map of the corrected states of America. Each of these countries would be very well balanced with each other. Actually, wait, first of all, I have to also clarify, there's only 48 states I've divided here. Alaska, which looks like, you know, like this. Wait, let's get my border thing. Alaska looks like this, right? They're like, that's a pretty good diagram of Alaska. We'll give that to Canada, so we'll like write a little CA in their box. You know, CA. And Hawaii, little islands that are like, you know, that's Hawaii, right? That's Hawaii. Hawaii, we'll just give to New Zealand. Like, you know, New Zealand's good with handling islands that don't want to be their own countries just yet. So we'll move them over to New Zealand. So just like this. Okay. NZ. So there we go. English-speaking countries they could do quite well with. We'll move those over to their own little sides. Let's put a box around both of those two. Let's put a nice little box around that lets people know that they're their own thing. We have to erase Hollywood to do that, but you know, okay, let's put them in our own boxes together. Maybe I can't do this. Okay, that's in its own box, and then that's already basically a box. Boom! Look at that. I did it. I made the 50 states into a better set of countries. What I think would actually happen in a world where this does happen, because in reality, the United States puts a lot of effort, internationally and nationally speaking, into trying to stay a country. I think it happens behind the scenes, but like, I think these big debates we have every 4 years about who should be leading this country, which one person should lead these 300 and almost 50 million people, I think these big debates, by dividing people into two camps, they don't leave room for the anti-federalist argument, right? Like, oh yeah, you know, why shouldn't the states have the rights? Oh, states should have rights. That is now a, you know, you make it like a left or right wing position. Except actually, states should only have rights when it's convenient for our side. Like, you know, the closest, you know, in America, I think it's like generally more a right wing position to be like states should decide their own things. Except generally speaking, those same, you know, like the same right wing party, the GOP or whatever, would also be like, but only when it's issues we agree with. On things that we want that to be nationwide, right? It leads to this argument where it's like, it keeps the country together despite all of that. So if you could somehow split the country, if I could overnight be king and make this all happen, I think that what would realistically happen is sometime soon there'd be war. I mean, the fact that Arizardo has to like cross Las Vegas and Friends, it'd probably be fine for a bit, but you know, then Las Vegas and Friends would be like, hey, you know, what, we're going to start charging you some tariffs to get to the other part of your country. We'll start, you know, the flying from parts of the country to the other parts, right now, because the US is one country, you know, New York to LA, one of the bigger journey routes that is done very often, would require flying over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 different states. And as a result of that, each of those states would collect their own overflight fees. And if you wanted to, the border states, their biggest advantage is you have to cross them for land or for air reasons. They could make money by just being like, we'll just charge those out-of-state people. And as a result, you'd get a lot of like petty internal conflicts, and eventually one of those petty internal conflicts would probably lead to some form of war. And if you were going to have a war, you'd realistically then end up with like 2 countries kind of forming on both sides, or like 2 sets of alliances, if not countries. So yeah, could you actually keep an America like this? Probably not, because most of the landlocked states would have a real, like, you know, this state wouldn't exist for very long. They would just be absorbed at some point. They'd get Polanded, is what I'm trying to say. You know, a state with a geography like this, again, these states couldn't exist for too long. Maybe Canada's existence just north of the border could become the new player in the region, or maybe this would just evolve into the biggest world war in the world. We don't know for sure until we try it, and that's why I'm petitioning US President, whoever it is at the time of this video going live. It's Donald Trump, isn't it? But like, you know, Mr. Trump, sir, if you want to be re-elected in 2020, the only way is to make this map a reality. That's right. This is my petition to you, Mr. US President. Or in fact, wait, let's go the other way. Mr. Biden, the man who intends to be the president in 2020, I would like it if you made this map a reality. I will tell people to vote for you if you promise to make this map true. That is my promise to you. And indeed, I hope that you enjoyed today's video. This was dumb. Why do I do this? Why do people watch this? That's my real question. If you have your own map you want to make, because you can just download a blank map of the states and divide it yourself, please do post it on my Reddit, reddit.com/r/toycat, because I don't know why drawing imaginary maps is so fun, but apparently it is. Apparently that's what we are now. We're the fake maps channel, and we give away American states to various countries. But, you know, I hope you enjoyed, because I'm going to see you all in another one. Also, you know, let's just erase MTD right now. I've decided they don't get to exist. They become part of Arizardo. You know, that's the most balanced way to do this, in my opinion. Let's remove the border. Let's just wipe that out. Okay, well, there goes all the borders. Arizardo wins, I guess. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in another one. Goodbye.